Right, hello, welcome to another edition of Low Code Campfire. This is edition 102 for June 16, 2023, and it's going to be an Open Lines Friday. It might be a light crew because I forgot to send out the email announcements. I just got that done, so we'll see. Maybe we'll get some folks to join in. This is an all skill levels community gathering that we do this hour every Friday. That's Fridays at 10 a.m. Central Time. And we just get together to share techniques, challenges, experiences. Usually we show something, usually we fix something. So lots of good things going on here. We record all these episodes. They're out on youtube.com/PlantonApp. And so you can subscribe and hit the alarm bell so you know when we post something new. We run an agenda like this where we say hello, and then we always start with first call, and then we get into a variety of things, talking generally about low code. After an hour or so, we go into our Afterglow segment where we just turn off the recording, talk about anything that comes to mind. Do engage with us, though. It's a meeting format, so just jump right in, show and tell. You can show your screen. We'll however you want to engage with us, or you can sit quietly in the background. If you do have noise going on behind you, we ask you to mute, but this is a very civil group. We don't have a lot of problems with having to throw people out. You can submit questions and topics in advance, and we have one of those, thanks to Mark today. So you can use this QR code or in the emails that we send to you. There's a spot to do feedback. And with that, I will say good morning and hello.
Good morning.
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 Yeah, I didn't remember to send out the invitation, so who knows? Just be 4 of us, or we'll get some more. But we'll start in our traditional fashion. What's on your mind?
Speaking from Mark, I don't have anything, sorry, except the little thing I sent in.
Yes, so we'll do that. Matt, thank you.
Yeah, I'm a happy camper, which doesn't make for good webinars, but I am.
Yeah. Well, it's possible that it could make for a short webinar, and we can do that. I have, there's nothing magical about the hour. So let's jump into the Mark's thing. Mark must have attended the webinar, the cafe on Wednesday, yes?
Yes, that's right. Of course.
So we illustrated that we have version control, and we talked about that we've got Marketplace coming up. And so the question, can backing up a solution on GitHub or Marketplace also be used to simply copy the solution to another site? So great question, but no. From a at least not directly, right? We if you have a solution that you want to share, and when we get to the spot where we're doing the marketplace and allowing outside vendors, then yeah, you'd be able to back up a solution and format it for the marketplace and then put it out there, potentially, you know, for no price. So if you have something that's useful to the community, then you could put it out there and do that. But it's not designed as a let's move things from here to there kind of a functionality. I think we've been talking about it. We have been talking about it for a long time. Related is the idea that at an enterprise level, we want to provide the capability to move from environment to environment. So you can have a development environment that where you're that's insulated from production, that the development can happen, move to a UAT environment, move to a production environment, and that's the story that we're working to provide, and that will be available at that license level.
Okay. That would be really cool. like that example I sent in with the bulk email system. There's a lot of things that go into that, and I sure would like to put that on another site or two or three.
Well, and in the same way, I mean, we did something probably the beginning of that or similar to it in Campfire, and it's my intention to go through the things that have been put into Campfire, especially my things, and try to bundle those up into something that's useful. Maybe I don't think it'll be maybe one package, but several packages where you can load a lot of things, and where a Plant and App system then doesn't start out at zero. It kind of starts out at your core development level. And so my assumption would be that you'd be able to do that for, if you're donating it to the community, or putting it on for sale, that'd be able to go through the marketplace. But we're not providing a no marketplace ability to do that.
You've mentioned a couple of times that so a system wouldn't start out empty, you could have this in there. I think I would also look forward to the opportunity to add new functionality to an existing Plant and App application. That's also included, right?
Yeah, so we are in our crawl, walk, run kind of doing things. Our minimum viable product for the marketplace is to be able to add to an empty system. I think what I'm seeing is that, and I haven't tested it yet, but we're definitely going towards the idea that you can add on to an existing system, and it probably will work even now. But that wasn't the goal that we gave the developer, so I haven't tested that piece out yet. I think that especially dissimilar things, like if you had an email, a bulk email sending solution and a CRM solution that were two completely different things, and you had an existing Plant and App application that you wanted to load those things onto, I believe they would work. Where we get into difficulty and would probably not work right away would be, for example, if you had an entity like a customer entity, and so that was released on your system, and then somebody else has a customer entity that maybe it's the same one but with some more properties. The ability to merge those things is not that adds a level of complexity. But I think dissimilar things, if you're adding an entity and adding some tokens and adding some pages and forms, I think those are going to work out of the box.
Okay, that's very reasonable.
Yeah, that's the hope where we're going. So we've picked up a couple of more people. Thank you for joining. I don't know if you were waiting for the late email that I didn't get around to sending, but if that was it, thanks for joining.
Good morning. I was waiting for the coffee pot.
I have no control over coffee pots, barely control over mine. So we entered a question from Mark, and we'll switch back to first call if there's anybody that has more things that want to direct us. Otherwise, I have a couple of things picked out that we can look at. But,
well, from the sound of Mark's question, it was also my question that I had put the ticket in, which was MEO and setting it up on a on-prem system. And is it ready? And the only thing I did not get in your answer in the tickets, Dale, was if I have multiple versions, does that mean I have to have multiple MEO installations?
I somewhat intentionally didn't answer that because it's kind of coming to the edge of my knowledge. And we'll have more discussions on the point. I believe that I mean, the fact that we're releasing different MEO for different versions, and they're good. There is some level of version specificness, but it raises a question in my mind how things will work, because if you, for example, are on 124 and you've got the 124 Mio, and then you advance to 125, what exactly is the process to make that happen? What's the upgrade process? I want to make sure that I know something useful before I tell you. And then you saw my second answer, which was that this Mio only deals with the first part of the story, the version control export, not the environment to environment import. So if your goal in setting this up is to move things along from one version to another, this isn't going to get you there yet.
I mean, that is my long-term goal. My short-term goals, would be to put back the functionality that used to exist for, backing things up to Git, so that after you went and messed up a form, you could go find a way to get it back.
Yes. And so that's exactly what we should be seeing out of this, that if you set up, on-prem customers have to set up their own Mio. And so if you were to work through those instructions, the goal that you should get out of that is that you should be able to set up your version control and then be able to push things into Git through that. Just a reminder, for hosted customers, we take care of setting up Mio for you, so you can set up quite simply, and that was the thing that I also demonstrated on Wednesday. So you can follow those instructions and get version control active. Jim, I hope you do work through the process and get it set up. And if you need any help at all with it, we'll.
And I'm going to give it a try. I don't know how long before I have time to give it. I mean, the only scary part of the instructions is getting the Docker environment set up. In reading through the instructions, in the instructions, you have to be careful what links you click on, because it will click between versions of the documentation. It'll flip between 125 and 124, and there's some subtle changes in the online docs for that. But in one place it says you have to be on one version of Windows, and another place it says you have to have it configured to run a Linux and different things. So, but I think on the bottom of that, one of those pages, and there was some links at the farther down the page that you have to go. I was just accidentally clicking through and reading through and like, wait, now I'm in 124 documentation.
And if we have bad links, I would love to find them.
Okay, as I locate them, I will drop you a note.
Thank you. We tried. We made some changes that in right now everything should be pointing. The goal is that everything points to current, so that you always, all of our links and everything should keep you in the current documentation, and the old is available if you need it. That's what we tried to do. But if we've missed links, that's an issue.
There's a group of links at the back. It was more higher up in the process of the description of versioning and planting app. I'll go see if I can find it.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe somebody else found it and they already went and fixed it.
Yeah, that would be ideal, but unlikely. So good. Good. Something else. All right. We ran into a couple of things this week that they happen to be by people that aren't on the call, so this might be new information. So these kind of fall into, I guess, into the category of known issues, things that we're going to fix, but and maybe ghost stories, things that if you know about them, maybe they won't be that scary. The first one is having to do with importing data, like from an Excel file. And whoops, wrong one here. Get the right, open up the right thing. So I have a pretty simple form here that the idea is that we're going to import an Excel file. And so you've got a single file upload and a button. And the button has actions to say, go read this Excel file. So there's nothing special about this import, this single file upload. It's just a control placed on the form, and it's to put in some Excel type files. And then the import button has an action, create list from Excel. And this is where we get into trouble. And this is the, I guess, the ghost story part. If you're the default, when you put this create list from Excel action onto a form, the default is that you have a file path and that has a drop-down list, and it shows all of your file upload controls, so you can just pick it, and it's very convenient. Unfortunately, it won't work. This needs a relative or absolute or link click or physical path to be able to import the list. And this dropdown is not providing that currently. So the easy answer, I mean, it's an easy workaround if you know it's there, but if you don't, it's a problem. If you provide it as an expression and do it as a token where you're actually getting the name of the thing plus one of the outputs like absolute URL or relative URL, and you can see these outputs here that is outputting absolute URL. If you use that, it will work just fine. And I think we've demonstrated.
That was the same thing with the thumbnail creator action.
Okay, I was thinking we saw something similar with that, and I believe, and I haven't tested it, but we have also create list from CSV.
The obsolete one. Yeah, the file is CSV file.
Well, the CSV source one, I think, even has the same thing where you can say from a CSV file. I can't report the obsolete one to development. They would laugh at me and wouldn't fix it.
Yeah.
But I asked them to check this one too. I guess we could check it here if we have a minute, but it's the same thing that we have this call Excel file, this file uploader that's there, but it may need to use the expression. So yeah, I mean, I guess if we don't have anything else going on, we can test this. So let's do it. And if you can think of any other things that might interact that way with a file, it would be good to know, and just kind of do as much, get them to fix as much at the same time, the same issue as possible. So we have an import data button. This one is like our Excel button. And so let's say that we do the same. We also allow CSV. Where is it? As a input file type. So then we'll clone this button and have it be the CSV importer. I could do this in another way, but I'm just trying to be pretty lazy here. So this was unrelated, and this one we're not gonna use. Instead, we're gonna be create list from a CSV source up, and we'll use our file. The field separator will be a comma, and we're going to output it to a list of list. We'll do that. So simple. And save that. And the experience that we were seeing is that it was just erroring. So I'm going to make a notepad here, make a CSV file. Save it. So let's see if we get an error. Yeah, so we got a file not found. And if I have a view data button that just shows these things in shows the value. So this test.csv is the name, is the default that's being returned out of that file, single file upload control, but the relative URL that it's returning is this thing. So it just the default, it doesn't look in the right place. And so anyway, if we go into the thing here and modify our import CSV, and instead of doing that, we can call and copy it here from above. Mistype, but instead of using a file path drop down, we'll use the expression builder and say change we'll make. Now when we hit the button, it's happy. So it created a list and we could prove that. But so I guess as an action item, I need to update my related ticket to make sure that we say for certain that that one is also broken. So that's a dark corner. And so it's three of them. Thumbnail creator. Do you know if there was a ticket for thumbnail creator, Patrick?
Yeah, pretty sure there is.
Okay. Could you look for that so that we can end up linking it to, so that we all those need to be done at the same time. Brainstorming for a second. Are there any other actions that interact with files that we might want to look at? Also, just kind of an interesting thing, I think, is that that same action, if we look at CSV, create a list from a CSV source, if we say that it's a CSV file instead of CSV text, this is smart enough not to even provide a drop down, because this only relates to whether or not there's a form. So there's it's not a problem if you're trying to use it with other things like automation or APIs or workflows, but only in the context of forms does this become a problem. found it for me. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just, again, wondering what actions might interact with a file. Here's one. Put this in a different button. Do that thing and get a Ajax. So let's see what happens. Yeah, so that's same issue.
Hopefully it's just with that specific control and something that
yeah, you're right. It might be the output control could be off. But I went back a few versions and couldn't find it. So I've never used this action, so I thought it might be interesting to see it work. Yep, pulls the sheet names. Interesting. So, because our importer can actually choose which sheets as well. Thanks, Jim, for the link. Okay, so we've documented something that needs to be fixed within the program, and we'll look at I don't know whether it's, as Patrick suggested, maybe it's just the individual control that's been bothered.
Matt has his hand raised.
Matt, let's play.
So the question I have is regarding the file manager. Started to play with that in the hopes that I would be able to use that as a file manager. And it seems to be geared toward image upload primarily and doesn't have what I wanted to do with it, or the capability is to have files created by the system, which were actually just Excel file output, put them in a specific directory or set of directories, and then have the ability to go in, view, manage, edit, delete, and download with that. I think that's out of scope for what that capability is. And that said, is there is there an action or a set of actions that I could be using to accomplish that sort of a goal?
I'm going to take the easy way out and let Patrick field this one. I think he has more.
So there's the whole file management set of actions that that really allow you to do a lot. It takes, it definitely takes some setup, but you can certainly load the files from a specific directory into a listing module, and then have item buttons that you can delete the file, you can rename the file. There's a bunch of stuff you can do with the files based on the file ID. I've used these, and it does get you a long way.
All right. So what I ended up doing was, so that the notion is that I've got a delete routine, and before I delete, I'm creating an Excel output of what is to be deleted and storing it in a customer area. So that's kind of the whoops button in case they accidentally delete the wrong thing or whatever. Mm-hmm. So what I ended up then doing is writing some SQL to go into the parent level directory and give me a list of all of the entities inside that parent directory, put them in a grid, and then have a download button. But it's, it works, but it doesn't, it's not elegant, and it's not, probably could use a lot of improvement. So I see these file management things here, and kind of, is there a way you could just give me a sense of, okay, generally speaking, do this, then this, then this sort of thing sequentially? Like, for instance, I have a specific archive main parent directory. Then inside there, I've got the client ID as the next level directory. Then inside that is the project ID subdirectory, where the actual backup, if you would, this Excel file lives. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to be able to say to, let's say the client, I don't want them seeing everybody's, output. I just want them to see theirs. So I want to be able to say filter just by, let's say, a cookie or a session variable to just give me all of the files that are listed in the client ID 3. Give me all of those Excel project files, for example.
Into a listing.
Yeah. Or I'm saying listing, but some kind of manageable format.
Yes. Yeah. So sure, you could if those are named the way you're saying, you could create a where clause, because the files the files table in DNN has the folder path. I believe it doesn't have a folder name; it has a folder path. So you could I think there's a way you can base your query on that, so that when a specific person logs in, you get the what they should be seeing through some sort of token, and then use that token to filter the list that's provided in the listing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and that's kind of what I'm doing. What I was wondering though, is there a combo of file management abilities that'll kind of get me there quicker, or like, for example, if you look at the stored procedures inside of DNN, there's a couple at least related to file management, directory management, and so on. And they differ in their output. And what some of them, for example, you can get the file, the folder ID. Others you can get the folder ID, but then it also lists a parent ID. So using a parent, you can reconstruct the path. So I could go in there, muck around with SQL, which I have done, or I was hoping to do something faster and easier using some of these file management capabilities within plants it out, but maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree.
So a couple of random thoughts that could be employed would be if you're in full control over the upload experience, in other words, or the creation of these things that you want them to have.
Yes.
So meaning either they're uploading the Excel files or you're creating the Excel files or whatever. If you're in full control of that experience, you could write them in your own custom entity with your own pathing, or they wouldn't have to even be in a folder structure, right? You could just say, if they're tied to ID number 3, you could put that in your table and then be able to list them from SQL and manage them there. And then if they want to download them or delete them, you don't even have to get into the file system level. You just do it, roll your own. Does that make sense?
Yes. And then, yes, it does. Thank you. Where in that context would the actual, in this case, an Excel file be? Would that, I see Mark's note, my research assistant, thank you. So in that context, where, so I understand you set up an entity that's your archive entity, and you put the attributes in there. Then in that case, where would the actual Excel file live? Or would I just simply store the path to the file in the entity?
I would store the path of the file in the entity, but also, now it's your choice. It could be one big bin of files that has no particular structure because the structure comes from the SQL table.
Right.
Or it could be that you still create the same structure that you're talking about, so that if you decide that you want to browse and look and find that there's structure to it, but you're never really releasing to the client the structure. You're just revealing files that they can download.
And once you if you do this through a Plantinep entity and you connect to the document entity, you're storing an ID. That's what's stored in your entity is a file ID. And with the file ID, you can really get anything you want. You can get the download link. You can get the path. So you can do a bunch of stuff just by having the file ID. And like Dale was saying, you never really need to show your folder structure at all.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. That helps point me in the right direction. And thank you, Mark.
All right. So, Jim, you've raised let's see, first of all, that where this bad link is on the bottom of this page.
Those links right in there take you to the 124 documentation.
Yeah, I see they're pointing to general and not to current. So we'll get this. And
it was just, if you're over on the navigation pane, then those have the right links to the same articles, just the correct versions.
Oh, over here on this side.
Yeah.
Great, thanks for pointing out the issue. So then you had a question about Shopify.
Yeah, so I'm working on a Shopify interface, and the API call from Shopify returns some data in the header, and it's the data is a link when you're doing their paging to page between things forward and back. And the data is coming back in a structure I don't really recognize. And I mean, I've got it is in that example there, Dale, that I posted. It's got these links and a field after it, but I don't short of parsing it, hard, brute force parsing the string to get pieces that I want, am I missing, something here that you can't, it's not a real link. Yeah, you won't be able to bring it up.
Oh,
Just paste it, if you just paste it in Notepad.
oh, this thing is, I'm sorry, it's not a link. This is the structure that you're getting returned.
Yeah.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, so I mean, if we just look at it in Notepad, maybe somebody would recognize it and go, oh, to parse that kind of field, because it's got a tag there at the beginning with a link that and a big GUID that lets them figure out how to process the page, and then at the end of that, semicolon is a field which identifies is that the link to go forward or back, and then it's got a comma that separates it and gives you so that's the next page, and then it repeats for the previous page. It's like, okay.
Okay, so we're parsing based on, it looks like there's repeating patterns. There's a comma between,
right,
kind of comma delimited and then semicolon delimited, and
all I really need out of that is that GUID, because my Planted app installation is like, okay, where do I want to go next? And I've built the rest of the URL. It looks like they want you to implement it, like feed this to a button or something, for an interactive. But I don't know, my missing something there that is, that's a common structure. It's not JSON, it's not XML, it's not really.
So I'm reminded of this contribution that Ben put that lets you split things up with delimiters. There's lots of different ways to do this, but
right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing an easy one.
Well, so let's see if we do commas and this wants to find a value. This is different. Yeah, I don't remember. So maybe limit. Never mind. This is I'm not sure this is the best example. But also I've had some good experience with ChatGPT to say, this is my string, give me a regex to extract the page info, and gotten some pretty good results about that.
Okay, I mean, I'll go look at that, and it's just.
I'm not sure that would be the easy way, but yeah, this is kind of a brute force parsing kind of a
thing. And that was the approach I was going to take. I did, it's just, as I've heard from the guys here, sometimes just because I looked at it and go, oh, it's brute force, didn't mean it needed to be, because there's some hidden gem in the tool that.
Well, there's also that CSV one that we had a minute ago. The CSV parser.
Put it in as a CSV as CSV data rather than from a file. I didn't
create a list from a CSV
source. Okay.
Yeah, but that's going to put it on one. Here's your text. I'm not sure this is the wrong one anyway. But it's still going to try to put it into two. It'll give it to you in two fields, right? So you got CSV text, and you're dividing it up by a comma, putting it into a list. You're going to get, in this case, one item with two fields, so you'd be able to do field 0, field 1 would come out of it. I don't think this is very easy for this particular case. So
Okay. Well, I will take the brute force approach. And
yeah, too much stuff going on here.
I would just hate in a future campfire, after I spent 8 hours going by brute force, somebody goes, "Oh yeah, I use this function that's built in here." And in 2 seconds, it gives you back.
Your problem.
Mark always finds.
I was going to say, your problem today is that Ben's not on the phone. He would have.
That's right. He has a script for that somewhere.
Wait a second. I was just working on that. Okay. You had a question about XLS versus XSL.
Yeah, it's the same project. They're getting data from vendors in an XLS file, not an XLSX. And I have that same problem on my store, but I manually just open the file and save it, and then upload it. For this other customer I'm doing the work for, that won't be an acceptable solution.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have a way to import an XLS file?
I haven't looked at that in a long time. My recollection is that, first of all, XLS was, I guess, proprietary, and so the open source thing that we are using to load XLS XLSX doesn't support XLS. And then at the time, I remember searching for and finding there are services that you can send the file and get it back in a different way. So a lot of the Internet of Things, for some price, it was possible to do that and automate it through an API.
Yeah, because a couple of years ago when I started getting vendor files, it was the problem, and that was the answer. I just want to make sure it hadn't changed. So
yeah, our product hasn't changed to make it any easier.
Okay.
Cool. All right, we got a conversation going now. We got 11 minutes to do anything we want with. Anybody else? Tell you another ghost story then. We had somebody ask about the remove entities, removed list entries, and the end of the story is it doesn't work. So we have for example, the one that we're trying to do, the action is this one, where we have remove list entities. You give it a list and you give it something that you want to remove, and it says that this should be, for example, if the name looks like equals to a value or is like a particular value, then that item gets removed from the list. Kind of a nice feature, but yeah, he couldn't make it work, and I looked at it and I couldn't make it work. I think the code is just wrong, and I've reported it. But save yourself some time. Don't use remove list entries. If you're faced with this, there's a couple of workaround kind of techniques. One would be that, and one is illustrated here on Campfire, where you can, in this example where I manipulate entries, this shows how to loop through a list, and you can make changes to an individual row. So in theory, you could use that to mark the row in such a way that when you finally use it, you just skip over rows that have that particular property. So you can do your own tagging. Another possibility would be to loop through the entity and create a new entity, which is really quite easy to do. So if you like this particular client's case, they did a SQL. They had a list that they wanted half the entries gone. I don't remember the use case, but they wanted half the entries gone, and so you could, and then they were going to consume that by putting that list into a grid, for example, and so they needed them to actually be gone. So you could create a new list and just copy the ones that you want, but the nice easy remove from list doesn't work. Known bugs. Okay. What else? Out of curiosity, what versions are people playing with these days? Are you up to 125 and having a good experience?
I'm mostly on 1.24.
Same.
I have a couple of sites on 125, but my production sites are 124.
Yep. Remember being in that spot and not wanting to be bleeding edge.
Yeah, to Mark's earlier point, it would be nice, it's like it'll be much easier once the ability to export a chunk of functionality to import it into a different instance. That will help a lot.
Yep. I agree. Patrick, are you working on anything interesting? And I'll put in a plug for office hours. Patrick does a great job of responding to those who ask for office hours. So wondering if how that's going for you as well.
We had one person earlier this week on Tuesday, nobody yesterday.
And did you help point him in the right direction?
Yeah, yeah, that was on, and I think we accomplished what we needed to and ended early.
So I want to put a plug in for those office hours. Patrick always has good pointers and helps decide a good direction to go. I don't check in there often, Patrick, but when I do, I really need it, and I'm always walking away happy. So I'm really glad you do it, and thank you for being so smart.
Well, and sometimes I find what I need sometimes, and Dale gets this is the one who gets experimented on in this way. Is sometimes I just need a sounding board, somebody just to talk through an idea with, and suddenly I realize where I need to go, and so you can use the office hours like that too.
Definitely.
There's got to be a name for that. The need to tell somebody so that when you explain it, you figure it out yourself.
Yeah,
that's such a common experience, I think.
Yeah.
My poor wife, I tell her all these things in great detail, and she just
grins and nods.
And then it's, oh yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, my wife serves the same role sometimes. So I've heard of guys who put, I think, a rubber duck on their monitor, and they talk to the rubber duck and explain things in great detail. And I think there's a whole movement in that area. It's not just a few.
See, Mark?
Oh, there he is. Is that why you have him?
I actually talked to him, but he's there just in case I do need to talk to him. But wait, there's more. I should save this for the after session, right?
I think that will probably gain more popularity for those who are home workers. Might get talked about if you're doing that at the office. But we should also take another note that this is the when we have the Plantain App users group get together, we need to have ducks as a gimme. So write that down. Plant a duck. Okay. Then in which case, now that I'm just babbling, I'm going to call it 3 minutes early here. So if you want, hang around for the Afterglow segment. We seem to have already wandered into that a little bit. But thanks again. It's been a good hour. We will be back here again next week with another episode of Low Code Campfire.